All right, welcome. So now we're going to talk about restricted values when it comes to rational expressions. Now, before we can jump into these examples, we need to know what is a rational expression. A rational expression is any algebraic expression that is a fraction of, so basically you look at a fraction of two algebraic expressions, right? So for example, all three of these would be considered rational expressions, okay? So because you've got fractions. Now, when we're talking about restricted values, and we're talking about rational expressions, remember, the thing you focus on is the fact that whenever you have a fraction, you cannot have 0 in the denominator, okay? So when it comes to evaluating what's restricted, what we're talking about is what values of the variables will make the denominator 0. Any value of a variable that makes the denominator 0 would be restricted, would be a restricted value, okay? So we want to know what are all of the values that we cannot have, because if we did, we'd end up with 0 in the denominator. So all we're going to focus on when we're deciding what the restricted values of a rational expression are is the denominator. Okay, so let's look at these examples here. So A, again, all we're looking for is what values of x will make the denominator 0. And the only value will be 2, because if we stick 2 in here, we get 0. So that means x cannot be equal to 2. Okay? It can be equal to anything else except 2. So 2 is a restricted value. Now if we look at B, notice here the denominator is a difference of 2 squares. So you've got to be careful here, because you might say, okay, well, it can't be 79. Or excuse me, I'm sorry, it can't be 7, right? But you'd only be partially correct. So if you factor this, so again, always look at factoring the denominator if you see it, okay? So up here, there was no factoring. So there was only one factor. Here, we actually have 2 factors because this is a difference of 2 squares. This actually factors into what? X plus 7 times x minus 7. So there are 2 restricted values. So in this case here, x cannot equal plus or minus 7. So there are 2 restricted values. Okay? Now, what about this one here? Now notice how this is not factorable, but we've got a product of numbers. We've got 5x squared and y. Well, in this case here, the only values that are restricted is anything that makes this product 0. Well, that means if either x or y are 0 or both, then we have a restricted value. So in this case here, y cannot equal 0 and x cannot equal 0. And so those are the restricted values. So that is how you determine restricted values when it comes to rational expressions.